Now let's continue to discuss and reflect on the main events shaping Nigerian politics as the campaign season and the 2023 elections draw near, with all the manoeuvring and absurdities that come with it, what somebody called rock and roll politics. As we follow the political trail with so many young people, as well as older Nigerians hungry for change, one can't help wondering why Nigerian politics is so complicated and demanding, and so full of tragedy and failure that it seems almost farcical. Take, for example, the row that's broken out between the Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, and politicians from the ruling APC party over the identity of bishops at the unveiling of the party's vice presidential candidate on Wednesday. The APC has been accused of hiring fake bishops in order to create the impression that its Muslim candidates have the support of the Christian community. The APC has, of course, denied that the clergymen were fake or that they included mechanics and yam sellers. And now the Electoral Commission, INEC, is drawing attention to the 334 pre-election court cases that are pending, warning that with the expected publication imminently of the personal particulars of candidates for governorship, deputy governorship and state assembly elections, the number of cases is expected to rise even higher. Well, in those circumstances, you can see how difficult it is to try and convey the sense that Nigerian politics is quite an important and basically noble vocation. And yet, so much is riding on what the politicians do and say. So, as the contenders make their promises ahead of the campaign season and the elections, let's talk to a man who has consistently challenged and fought against the political system in an effort to secure justice for ordinary Nigerians. He's the human rights lawyer, constitutional expert, and senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana. And I'm delighted to say that he joins me now in the studio. Mr. Falana, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much, Charles. My pleasure. Once again.
Let me start by asking you what you make of this warning, first of all, from INEC about the alarming number of pre-election court cases that are pending and the fact that they are set to rise with the publication of the particulars of candidates.
Well, I wasn't in any way taken aback. In fact, I even thought the figure would be higher because the proper things were not done. Whereas the law had taken cognizance of this disturbing phenomenon and made provisions to cure the mischief. Unfortunately, INEC, that is complaining, refused to apply the provisions of the law. The point I'm making is that both the Electoral Act and the Constitution have empowered INEC to reject names of candidates that did not emerge from valid primaries. But INEC gave the impression that his hands were tied. Oh, we're like a robot. Whatever they bring in, we must take. No, that is no longer the position of the law. And I was forced to come out to draw the attention of the INEC to the relevant provisions of the Constitution, in particular, Section 285, Subsection 13, that the decision of INEC with respect to nomination of candidates can be challenged either by the candidate or the political party. I mean, the law has empowered INEC, as if impose a duty on INEC to monitor the primaries of every political party. INEC officials monitor the primaries and they submitted reports. If strange names of aspirants who did not participate in the primaries were submitted, INEC has a duty to remove the names and demand from the political party, this is our report. Can we have the names of the actual winners? But INEC said no. This is what has led to the deluge of cases needlessly. And so INEC now goes to court.
And INEC is joined in every single
case.
Yeah.
Because INEC is almost a principal party, even though a nominal party, but INEC's evidence, the evidence of INEC, is going to determine what will happen. We monitor the election as an independent body. This is our report. But this will have been unnecessary if INEC had simply won the political parties. In fact, the most interesting one is the one of the Senate President and Senator Akpabio. Now, as the Senate President, you coordinated the amendment of the electoral, or rather, the promulgation of a new Electoral Act, the Electoral Act 2022. Section 115, subsection D of that law has criminalized double nomination. Criminalized. So you can't say that you took part in the presidential primary. You also took part in the senatorial primary at the same time. Under that law, under that section of the law, double nomination attracts 2 years imprisonment. So again, I will expect INEC to draw the attention of the APC to the provision of the law that you are playing with fire.
So why do you think it's not doing that?
I'm not sure the attention of the INEC has been drawn
to some of these things.
To some of these provisions, you know. And I'm sure if that is done,
that would be the job of their legal department,
of course,
wouldn't it?
Yes. Yeah. See, we cannot take these names. We are going to join them to commit criminal offenses, electoral offenses. You know, but I do hope that INEC will have to sit up, because what the Electoral Act has tried to do is to curb the criminal propensities of the political class. And unless we challenge impunity, we're not going to get it right. So we'll just be wasting our time.
But that's a systemic problem in Nigeria.
Yes, but
though,
it can only be dealt with, you know, in a very tough manner. There is no way you can, the way we are going, we are creating more problems. Because like INEC has said now, we are talking of 334 pre-election matters with respect to state and national assembly elections.
Yeah.
You are going to have the governorship elections. And you are going to expect many more. So you may have about 500 pre-election cases. Not to talk of election petitions after the elections next year. So, and that is why Nigeria records the highest number of pre-election and election petitions in the world. And with the way we are going, in spite of the relevant provisions of the law that ought to have taken care of this situation, we just, state of impunity, you know, we don't bother. And so this is why we are wasting so much resources on needless election cases.
Well, I mean, as I listen to you, I mean, I always find your analysis absolutely arresting and fascinating. And I have to ask you, if you were to become Nigeria's Attorney General and Minister for Justice, how would you deal with the system, the legal system in this country that often allows a lot of these things to take place? I mean, because many such cases take years to conclude and often remain inconclusive even after so long.
Chance, you're in the realm of speculation. But you see, what will surprise you, and this is the painful aspect of it all, the law has taken care of many of these situations we find ourselves. Take, for instance, since 2015, when the Administration of Criminal Justice Act was passed, in federal courts, you're not supposed to have adjournment in criminal cases more than 5 times. Cases are to be heard day by day. No adjournment should be more than 7 days. But because the system has not appointed enough judges, the system has not acquired recording gadgets, you have a situation where judges have to write record evidence, long hand.
That sounds ridiculous, so, to be honest.
You have problems with the system. So we make these laws without putting in place the machinery to make the law work. So you have a situation where now people go to court. Cases started in 2015 are still in the docket. And some of them, as I did predict, in 2015, some of those cases will outlive this regime. And nothing has been done, really, to address this problem. So you have a ruling class, and that is the difference. As I always tell you, that is the difference between the ruling class here and the ruling class in advanced democracies. And I think it was Lord Denny that was often fond of making the point that no matter how high you are, the law is higher than you.
Absolutely.
Here, if you are well connected, you are higher than the law. And that is impunity.
So do you
the point I'm making therefore is that if you have a government that is prepared to prosecute all indictable offenses, if you have a government that is prepared to put an end to illegal arrest and detention, if you have a government that is prepared to organize the criminal justice system in a way that you do not subject cases to unending adjournments, and you have a situation where official impunity is made history in the country. Unless you do this, the rule of law can never be institutionalized in our country.
I'm going to ask you one more question regarding the law before we move on to politics, because obviously a lot of people want to hear your analysis and your take of what is going on in Nigeria politically. But do you think the criminal justice system, including the police, the public prosecutors, etc., need, first of all, reform, and then secondly, as part of that reform, need to be politically and financially independent so they can go after anybody without reference to the presidency or any other arm of government?
Frankly speaking, Charles, the law has substantially reformed the system. Apart from
it's a matter of applying it, is that what you mean?
Apart from Chapter 4 of the Constitution, we have the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, which has been domesticated by all the states in the country. In fact, the federal one took after the Lagos one. Secondly, you have the Anti-Torture Act, that no Nigerian shall be tortured. But the Attorney General has not put the machinery in motion to put an end to torture of citizens. You have the Police Establishment Act 2020, which insists that all arrests in Nigeria must be recorded. There shall be a database, in fact, since 2015, of all criminal offenders in Nigeria. The police must send all the records to the Attorney General. Nothing has happened in that case. In that Section 470 of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act has established Administration of Criminal Justice Monitoring Committee to put an end to prison congestion in Nigeria, to ensure that cases move speedily. That body has not been empowered, has not been funded to work. So what the Attorney General has done, Mr. Abubakar Malami SAN, is to create an illegal body called Prison Decongestion Committee. And that is the one that is funded. So these are the problems. The laws are there, just like the Electoral Act. But what is lacking is the political will on the part of the government to ensure that the law works.
Well, the hope must be that as the elections approach, there will be a change for Nigeria in the right direction, and that some of these things will begin to take place. I mentioned emphatically hope. What's your sense of the mood in Nigeria as elections draw near?
Nigerians are generally desirous to put an end to impunity, mismanagement of the economy, darkness, by way of epileptic supply of electricity. Nigerians want good governance. The worrisome aspect is whether the system in place will change our narrative. And to do that, Nigerians will have to begin now to challenge all those who are contesting elections. That is not going on yet.
Well, in that regard, what's your assessment of those who've thrown their hats into the ring in the race to replace President Buhari?
So far, names are thrown up all over the place. Some of them are visiting places. Others are telling us they want to rule the country. But in terms of the message, so far, we're waiting for the message.
The message.
What do you want to do? How do you address insecurity of life and property of every individual in Nigeria? How do you guarantee law and order in the country? How do you address youth unemployment? How do you address food insecurity? How do you fix the infrastructure deficit? How are you going to address the collapsed value of the naira? So what do you want to do about the exchange rates? Unless we begin to ask these questions, just like they are doing in the United Kingdom now, some of those candidates are falling by the wayside. And unless we do that here.
But do you think that that is the key thing in Nigeria? I mean, when it comes to elections, because you know, the aim is to win elections. So the candidates tend to be those with the potential, those with the potential to win have to have broad appeal.
Yes.
Do you see anyone in the race who has that kind of broad appeal?
I would think quite a number of them have broad appeal. But what they make of such appeal is another matter entirely. Some of them are well known. Some of the candidates are well known. So they wouldn't need to do much of introducing themselves to the electorate.
But you don't want to tell us which candidates you think have broad.
No, that would be unfair on those who are not well known, who are now trying to publicize themselves. But the point I'm making is that, and the media will have to come in here. And I was saying that because what the media is doing for now, for me, with profound respect, it's a bit dangerous for the country. What we are doing now is promoting ethnicity, a religion, and other primordial issues without addressing those problems that are tearing our country apart, that are making a mockery of democracy in the country.
But isn't religion and ethnicity tearing the country apart?
No, the ruling class, the members of the ruling class, exploit ethnicity and religion to divide our people. They are well united. The members of the ruling class are well united. When it comes to getting duty waivers from the government for goods imported by them, when it comes to sharing oil blocks, they are united. When it comes to exploiting the people, they don't fight in their boardrooms. But when it comes to, let's go and renew our mandate, then they keep the people divided. And that is why now the issue of religion and ethnicity have become diversions.
So how do you think the media should handle that?
What the media should be doing now. If a political party says, I'm going for a Muslim ticket. If you are dissatisfied, you don't vote for that party. But for goodness sake, ask the party, what do you want to do for the country? How do you manage the diversity of the country?
But you know, a lot of politics is about optics, it's about feelings, it's about mood. That's what
you see, to change the mood.
There's got to be a feel good.
To change the mood and the feeling.
And when you have that type of Muslim ticket in a religiously divided country, it rubs some people up the wrong way.
Again, I'm not, in fact, I'm very reluctant to discuss these ephemeral issues. Because, as I said, they are diversionary in this country. And that is lost in the message of the APC in justifying Muslim ticket. Oh, we had it in 1993. For goodness sake, in 1993, the Abiola Kingibe ticket was anchored on a program called Farewell to Poverty. In the Second Republic, we're talking of, I think UPN was talking of the 4 cardinal programs. The PRP,
so
Kano and Kaduna, issue-based campaign, issue-based election.
But given everything you've said, why should Nigerians think, because essentially what you're telling us is that a lot of these things are still there. There are problems, and a lot of people would agree with you. But why should Nigerians in that context, or in that regard, think that the next president will work in their favor? I mean, they were very optimistic when President Buhari came to power in 2015, but it soon turned into a very loud moan about how he'd fallen far short of expectations.
You see, in 2015, majority of Nigerians were made to believe that the Buhari Idi Agbon of 1984-85 was coming back. In other parts of the world, you don't reward a military dictator with democratic positions. But luckily for them here, they go in and out of power. So in 2015, 2014, Buhari was well marketed. And Nigerians was made to believe, Nigerians were made to believe that a change, a fundamental change was going to take place. But between then and now, it has become increasingly clear that things are worse, pretty worse now than they were when the regime came to power. So, but we learn, Nigerians must learn from their mistakes. And that is why this time around, there should be no assumptions. The question of, this is this. No. This time around, we must secure from every candidate concrete solutions to the problems confronting the country. And if we don't do that, we're going to be messed up.
So what should be uppermost in the minds of Nigerian voters as the campaign season and the elections draw near? What should they be looking out for in the candidates? I know you touched on it, but that's an important point.
Nigerians should be looking for candidates that are prepared to render selfless service. And for young people here, they must try and familiarize themselves with the history of our country. That once in this country, there were governors that lived in their own houses. Like the late Jakonde in Lagos. He lived in his own house for 4 years. That is very strange now. Jakonde rode his own car for 4 years in Lagos. And you didn't have this scandalous pension scheme for governors. No. So Nigerians must try and find out, how did we come to this monumental mess in which we have found ourselves? And now demand for concrete answers to the problem confronting us. And those candidates that are not prepared for governance will fall by the wayside. Just like the lady, the Nigerian British, I think Kemi, you know?
Yeah, Kemi Baden.
Who said Nigeria is a socialist country, and I knew she wasn't going to go far. And we must apply such standards.
Rigorous
test. We must know, we must subject their pedigree to questioning. We must find out, what have you done for your life? And unless we do that, 2023 may be worse than 2015. So, and we have enough time. And happily, young people are showing interest in the affairs of the country. and they constitute about 63% of the voting population. And nobody can dismiss such intervention this time.
So if the PDP or the APC win the election, which is what has happened in the past, I mean, it's seen as essentially a two-way race, even though this time the field appears to have widened. But if they do you think Nigeria, with the kind of leaders that have come out as presidential candidates, would change systemically in the way that you would like, given those leaders? Or would it, in your assessment, be the same pack of jokers being reshuffled?
Ideologically, there isn't a difference between some of these parties. In fact, you mentioned APC and PDP. Difference is like 6.5 dozen. I can't see it. In terms of the solutions to any of the problems confronting the country. So, but I think it's too, as they say, it's too early to call, too close to call. I mean, for now, and that's why I'm saying, in my own case, I'm studying the political situation. I know some of the candidates, and I know they ain't going to change significantly.
But what about somebody like Peter Obi, who wants to look very different, or to portray himself as looking very different from the old political guard? But in reality, how different can he look, given that he's been a ranking member for years of a political party, the PDP, that was full of that old guard of politicians?
Just frankly speaking, I'm very reluctant to discuss individuals.
Right.
But since Mr. Peter Obi is contesting under the Labour Party, he has to study the manifesto and program of the Labour Party. I listen to him, going around, you see talking essentially like a PDP member. So if he's now embracing the Labour Party, he must familiarize himself with the program and manifesto of the Labour Party. And I understand that he has embraced the Nigerian Workers' Charter of Demands, which are essentially based on Chapter 2 of the Constitution. So he must go out there and let the world know that now that he has moved to the Labour Party, he has forgotten the past. And now is identifying himself with Nigerian workers and the Nigerian people. So that's the challenge before him.
Right. So do you think something has gone, I mean, this is like getting close to a final question. Something has gone permanently, disturbingly wrong with politics in Nigeria, or can it be mended as the elections approach? 2023 is around the corner from us.
Again, we have to look at what is on the ground. The National Assembly has now almost belatedly recognized the fact that the national grid has become too greedy in a way that you generate electricity in your state, you are commanded to transfer, all the megawatts to the national grid, and the national grid collapses regularly. So the National Assembly has now decided to unbundle, as it were, the electricity sector by saying states can generate the electricity, local government should be able to generate electricity within their areas of operation. That's number one. Number two is that the country has invested a lot of money on the electricity sector. We need to do an audit and recover money that has been criminally diverted and invest same in the electricity sector. I know a couple of years ago or so, Nigeria ran to Egypt and decided to study what had happened there, what was like a miracle, whereby Egypt invested $9 billion to generate 14,000 megawatts. And so Nigeria was then told this was done by Siemens. So Nigeria ran to Germany, and I know some agreement, you know, was reached between Siemens and the country. But again, there's a problem with funding, you know. So we have to look at what is on ground. Again, as I said, we must commit each of the candidates to really tell Nigeria, how are you going to generate electricity? Because without electricity, you can't talk about industrialization.
And that's the key thing,
It's
really,
key.
holding the feet of the candidates to the fire.
Yes, so
I want to
important.
thank you, Femi Falana. I mean, I'm always absolutely fascinated with your analysis of Nigeria. Thank you very much
Thank
indeed.
you.
And Femi Falana is the human rights lawyer, constitutional expert, and senior advocate of Nigeria.